The great auction hall of Varen Station was always full of noise. Merchants, traders, and alien lords gathered there to buy rare items, strange machines, and sometimes even living beings. Bright lights shone on the stage, and the sound of voices rose and fell like waves. To many who visited, it was a place of excitement. To others, it was a place of cruelty. That day, the hall was louder than usual. A new group of beings was brought out, each one placed on the stage to be judged by the crowd. Some were tall, with strong arms meant for work. Others had hard skin and glowing eyes, sold as guards. Each time one stepped forward, the crowd shouted and raised their hands, bidding higher and higher. The auctioneer, a tall alien with silver skin and a long voice, smiled as credits poured in. But then, the room grew quiet. The next figure to step onto the stage was small, far smaller than any before. It was a girl, no taller than a child, with thin arms and legs. Her skin was pale with faint patterns glowing across it, like the shimmer of stars on water. She stood silently, looking at the floor, her long hair hiding half of her face. She seemed fragile, as if a strong wind could push her over. The auctioneer tried to keep his voice strong. Next we have a rare creature. She is young, of unknown origin. Her race is small, but perhaps she has uses. Who will start the bidding? The hall stayed quiet for a moment. Then the laughter began. Too small, shouted one alien with rough green scales. Worthless, said another, a heavy creature with 4 eyes. She will break if she carries even a cup of water, laughed a third. The girl kept her head down, saying nothing. Her hands trembled slightly. It was not the first time she had heard such words. She had grown used to being seen as weak. The auctioneer tried again. Surely someone will see her value. Who will start the bidding? Still, the room was filled with laughter. Some aliens joked, others made cruel remarks. None lifted their hands. The auctioneer began to frown. It was shameful for an auction to end without a buyer. He tapped the stage impatiently. In the back of the hall, a human sat quietly. His name was Ryan. He wore simple clothes, nothing fine or rich, but his eyes were sharp. He had been watching the auction without much interest, but when the small girl stepped forward, he leaned forward in his seat. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. He saw something in her, something hidden behind her silence and fear. The auctioneer sighed loudly. No bids. Then we must move on. And that was when Ryan raised his hand. The hall froze. Every eye turned to him. You cannot be serious, one alien muttered. A human wants her, another scoffed. Waste of credits, someone whispered. But Ryan did not lower his hand. His face was calm, his eyes steady. One bid, said the auctioneer, surprised. He looked around, waiting for another offer. None came. The hall was too shocked. Why would a human pay for something everyone else called useless? Sold, the auctioneer declared. To the human. The laughter started again, but this time it was sharper, filled with disbelief. Many shook their heads. Some mocked him, calling him a fool. Others muttered that humans were strange, always acting against reason. Ryan ignored them all. He walked to the stage, where the girl was standing in silence. She looked up at him with wide eyes, uncertain of what to expect. No one had ever stepped forward for her before. The auctioneer handed her over, still shaking his head. She is yours, human. May she bring you, whatever it is you think she will. Ryan knelt slightly so his eyes met hers. He spoke softly, his voice carrying none of the cruelty she was used to hearing. Come with me. You do not have to be afraid. The girl blinked, startled by the kindness in his tone. She hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady but gentle, and led her away from the stage. As they walked, the hall behind them buzzed with more laughter and whispers. But Ryan never looked back. His hand stayed firm, guiding her out of the auction hall and into the bright corridor beyond. The girl finally spoke, her voice almost a whisper. Why did you raise your hand?" Ryan looked down at her and gave a small smile. "Because you are worth more than they can see." She lowered her eyes, not knowing what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. The hall doors closed behind them, shutting out the noise of laughter. For the first time, the small alien girl felt a spark of hope. She did not know where this human would take her, but she felt that maybe, just maybe, she was no longer alone. The corridors of Veyron Station were busy as always. Traders moved quickly, carrying goods from one end to another. The air was filled with the smell of food stalls, the hum of machines, and the chatter of many languages. In the middle of this noise, Ryan walked calmly, guiding the small alien girl beside him. She stayed close, almost hiding behind him as groups of aliens passed by. Her steps were light, and her eyes moved nervously from side to side. She had never been free in such a place before. Every sound made her flinch, every voice made her uneasy. Ryan noticed her fear and slowed his pace. "You are safe with me," he said in a steady tone. The girl looked up at him. Her lips parted as if to speak, but she remained quiet. When they reached the docking area, Ryan stopped in front of a small but strong ship. Its metal frame was old yet well kept. The engines hummed softly, and its name was written across the side in simple letters, Wanderer. "This is my ship," Ryan said. He placed his hand on the panel and the door opened with a low hiss. "Come inside." She hesitated at the edge of the ramp. Her hands tightened at her sides. For a moment, it seemed she might turn back. But Ryan waited patiently, not rushing her. Slowly, she stepped forward and entered. The inside of the ship was not fancy. The walls were plain metal, and the furniture was simple. But everything was clean, and there was a quiet warmth to it. Ryan guided her to a seat near the control deck. "You can rest here," he said. "You must be tired." The girl sat, her small frame sinking into the chair. She watched him as he moved about the ship, pressing switches and checking screens. Finally, she spoke in a soft voice. "My name is Luma." Ryan paused, then turned and nodded. "Luma. That is a good name." "I am Ryan." She lowered her eyes. "Why did you choose me?" Ryan walked closer and leaned against the side of the chair. His gaze was calm, not sharp or mocking like the others in the hall. "Because I do not see what they see. They looked at you and thought you were weak. I looked at you and saw someone who deserved a chance." Luma blinked. His words were strange to her. In her short life, she had only been treated as a burden. She had been laughed at, pushed aside, or ignored. Never once had someone said she deserved anything more. "You do not know me," she whispered. "That is true," Ryan replied. "But I do not need to know everything about you to believe you have worth. Every being does." She sat in silence, not knowing how to answer. Ryan stood and went to a small cupboard, pulling out a tray with food. He placed it in front of her. "Eat. You need strength." The food was simple bread, fruit, and water, but to Luma it felt like more than a meal. It felt like kindness. She ate slowly, her eyes never leaving him. Ryan returned to the controls and started the ship. The Wanderer lifted from the dock, engines rumbling, and soon they were flying into open space. Stars stretched across the black sky like endless sparks. Luma pressed her face to the window, her eyes wide. She had never seen space like this before. It was vast, endless, and beautiful. For the first time, her chest felt lighter. Ryan glanced at her. "Do you like it?" She nodded quickly. "It is big." He gave a small smile. Yes. Bigger than anyone can imagine. Out here, you can be whoever you choose to be. His words sank deep into her heart. Could she really choose who she wanted to be? She had never thought of such a thing. After a while, she spoke again. People laughed. They said I am useless. Ryan's expression hardened, but his voice stayed gentle. They were wrong. Laughter does not decide your worth. You are more than what they see. Her eyes grew wet, though no tears fell. She looked down at her hands, small and thin. What if they are right? Ryan walked back to her and crouched so they were eye to eye. Then prove them wrong. Not for them. For yourself. Show the galaxy that even the smallest light can shine in the dark. Luma stared at him. His words lit something inside her that she could not name. For the first time, she felt like maybe her existence had meaning. The Wanderer continued through space, leaving the noise of the station behind. That night, Luma lay in the small cabin Ryan had given her. It had a bed, a light, and a blanket. To most, it would seem plain. To her, it was the most comfortable place she had ever known. She lay on her side, listening to the steady hum of the ship's engines. Her mind replayed the moment in the hall. The laughter, the silence, the hand that rose when no one else's did. She had thought it was a mistake. Yet now she realized it was not. Ryan had chosen her. He had believed in her before she had even spoken a word. She whispered to herself, testing the sound of it. Ryan. The name felt safe. Meanwhile, in the control deck, Ryan kept his eyes on the stars. His thoughts were calm, but he knew this choice would change his path. The galaxy was wide, full of danger and challenge. Taking Luma with him would not be easy. Yet he felt no regret. He remembered the moment he raised his hand. He had not done it out of pity. He had done it because something inside told him the girl mattered. That instinct had guided him many times before, and it had never failed him. As the Wanderer moved deeper into space, the bond between human and alien began to take shape. One had been mocked, the other had been doubted, but together they had already taken the first step of a journey that would surprise the galaxy. Life aboard the Wanderer settled into a quiet rhythm. Days passed with the steady hum of the engines, the soft blinking lights of the control panels, and the endless stars outside the windows. For Ryan, it was a familiar life. For Luma, every hour was new. She spent much of her time exploring the ship. The hallways were narrow but safe, leading to small rooms filled with tools, supplies, and storage. There was a training deck, a workshop, and even a greenhouse where simple plants grew. To her, the Wanderer felt like a floating world. At first, she moved carefully, as though afraid she might break something. She had grown used to being told she was fragile, and her body was indeed small and light. But Ryan never stopped her. Whenever she peeked into a room, he nodded in approval. "You can go anywhere you like," he said one morning as she hesitated at the door of the workshop. "This ship belongs to both of us now." The word surprised her. "Both of us?" "Yes," he said with a small smile. "A ship is only alive when it has more than one heart on board." Luma did not fully understand, but the idea warmed her. She began to spend time near the workshop where Ryan often worked. He repaired wires, adjusted panels, and checked the ship's systems. His hands were steady and sure, each movement careful but confident. Luma sat quietly in the corner, watching. One day, as he struggled with a stubborn circuit, she stepped forward. "That line is crossed," she said softly. Ryan looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" She pointed at the wires. "That one should move left, not right. If it goes right, it will heat too much." Ryan raised an eyebrow but adjusted the wire as she suggested. The system blinked green, fixing the problem instantly. "Well," he said, I suppose you have a sharp eye. Luma smiled faintly for the first time. After that, she began to notice other things. When a screen flashed with strange codes, she told Ryan what button to press. When the engine hummed too loudly, she knew which lever to lower. It was not something she had been taught. It was as if her mind could sense patterns that others could not. Ryan started asking her for help. He did not treat her as weak. He gave her tools, asked her opinions, and listened when she spoke. Here, he said once, handing her a small device. Tighten the bolts around the edge. Her hands trembled at first, but she worked carefully. When she finished, Ryan checked it and gave a firm nod. Good work. Those 2 words stayed in her heart. No one had praised her before. As days passed, her fear began to fade. She walked the halls with more confidence. She ate her meals without looking over her shoulder. She even began to hum softly to herself when she was alone. Still, there were moments when shadows returned. At night, she sometimes woke from dreams of the auction hall, hearing the laughter echo in her ears. When that happened, she curled into the blanket, afraid the sound would never leave her. One such night, Ryan noticed her silence during breakfast. He set down his cup and looked at her. You did not sleep well. She shook her head. The laughter again, he asked. Her eyes widened. How did you know? I can see it on your face, Ryan said. His voice was calm, not pressing. Memories take time to fade. But you are not there anymore. You are here, on this ship, with me. And here, no one will laugh at you. Luma lowered her gaze. I want to believe that. You will, he said firmly. The days continued. One afternoon, the Wanderer drifted through a storm of cosmic dust. The ship rattled as particles struck the hull. Ryan adjusted the controls, guiding the ship carefully through. But then a warning light flashed. The stabilizer was failing. He moved quickly, pulling up data on the screen. The system showed a complex mess of numbers and lines. He frowned, trying to see the fault. Luma leaned forward. Her eyes scanned the patterns with surprising speed. It is the 3rd column. That one is too heavy. Ryan looked at her, then back at the screen. He tried her suggestion. At once, the system balanced, and the red light turned green. He let out a breath. How did you see that so fast? I just knew, she said quietly. Ryan studied her for a moment, then gave a slow nod. You have a gift, Luma. Never doubt it. Her cheeks warmed. No one had ever called her gifted before. From that day on, he trusted her even more. When the engines needed tuning, he asked her to listen. When the navigation system glitched, he asked her to scan the codes. Each time, she proved herself. Each time, her confidence grew. Yet, outside their small world, the galaxy was not safe. News spread across stations and trade routes of raiders, smugglers, and conflicts rising in distant sectors. Ships were attacked, cargo stolen, lives lost. The space lanes were dangerous. Ryan knew that sooner or later, trouble would find them. He did not speak of it to Luma, but in his mind, he wondered if she was ready. Luma, however, was already thinking the same. She had seen the way he kept weapons ready in the storage room. She had heard the sharp tone in his voice whenever strangers spoke too close at docking ports. She understood that danger was near. One evening, as they watched the stars from the control deck, she asked, if trouble comes, what will I do? Ryan turned to her. You will do what you have always done. Use your mind. Use your gift. You do not need to be strong in body to be strong in spirit. She held his gaze, searching for doubt, but found none. Then I will try, she said firmly. He gave a small smile. That is all I ask. The Wanderer sailed on, carrying them deeper into unknown space. Ryan, the human who never lowered his hand, and Luma, the small alien girl who was beginning to see her own worth. The Wanderer moved smoothly through open space, its engine steady, its path calm. For many days, Ryan and Luma traveled without problem. They stopped at small outposts to trade for fuel and food, then returned to the quiet of the stars. But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. Danger waited on every route, and Ryan knew it well. One afternoon, as the ship passed near a frontier station called Drenner Port, alarms lit up on the control deck. A warning signal pulsed across the screen. Ryan leaned forward quickly, his eyes sharp. "Raiders," he said in a low voice. Luma's head snapped up. "Raiders?" "Yes," Ryan replied. "Ships that hunt for easy prey. They steal cargo, take lives, and vanish before the patrols arrive." Luma's hands tightened on the seat. Fear touched her face, but she stayed beside him. Through the window, dark shapes appeared against the stars. Sleek ships, fast and armed, closed in on the station. Drenner Port was not large. It had only a few defense guns, and its walls were worn from age. The raiders had chosen their target well. Ryan guided the Wanderer closer, watching as chaos began. The station lights flashed, alarms rang, and voices shouted across the comms. "This is Drenner Port," a voice cried. "We are under attack. All ships able to help, respond at once." Several traders hurried to escape, engines burning as they fled. Others locked their doors and went silent. Few were willing to risk their lives. Ryan's jaw tightened. He had seen this many times before. Stations left helpless, raiders taking what they wished, and the strong turning away. Beside him, Luma spoke in a trembling voice. "Will we run too?" Ryan looked at her. "No. We will not." Her eyes widened. "But the raiders are many. The station cannot fight them." "Then we will give them a chance," he said firmly. The Wanderer swooped toward the port. On the station's deck, frightened leaders watched the attack begin. They saw the small human ship arrive and shook their heads. "What can that human do?" one muttered. "And he brings that tiny girl with him," another said with scorn. "Useless." But Ryan did not hear their words. His focus was on the battlefield. The raiders fired at the station, blasts of light striking the shields. The thin defenses shook, cracks spreading across their surface. Inside, people shouted and ran for cover. Ryan moved fast. "Luma, I need your eyes on the systems. Watch the raider ships. Tell me what you see." She swallowed hard, her hands shaking, but she obeyed. Her bright eyes scanned the screens. The enemy ships darted like wolves, their weapons burning. She looked deeper, past their movements, into the patterns. "Their right flank is weak," she whispered. "The engines on the second ship are unstable. If you strike them, the others will slow." Ryan gave a sharp nod. He pushed the controls, guiding the Wanderer into position. The ship spun, dodging fire, then unleashed a burst of energy at the target she named. The shot hit perfectly. The raider ship shuddered, its engine sparking. It veered off course, crashing into another raider. Both ships spiraled out of the fight. Luma gasped. "It worked." Ryan gave a small smile. "Of course it did. You saw it before anyone else." But the battle was not over. More raiders circled, anger in their movements. They turned their weapons on the Wanderer. Beams of light struck the shields, rocking the ship. Sparks flew across the deck. "Hold on," Ryan said, gripping the controls. Luma grabbed the seat, her heart pounding. The ship shook again as another blast hit. "We cannot fight them all," she cried. "We do not need to fight them all," Ryan replied. His eyes stayed sharp, his voice calm. We need only to break their will. He dodged another attack and turned the ship sharply. Luma, look again. Where is their leader? She forced herself to breathe and focused on the patterns. Her eyes darted over the signals, the movements, the energy flows. Then she pointed. There. The largest ship. Its command center is on the upper deck. If you strike the power lines there, it will blind the others. Ryan adjusted course without hesitation. The Wanderer dove under two raider ships, engines blazing, and shot upward. Fire streaked past them, but Ryan kept steady. Now, Luma whispered. He fired. The shot pierced the leader's power line. In an instant, the great raider ship went dark, its lights dying, its weapons falling silent. The smaller ships around it faltered, their formation breaking. The people of Drennerport, watching from within their fragile walls, gasped in shock. The little human ship had turned the battle. Seizing the moment, the station defense guns opened fire with renewed strength. Traders who had hidden before now joined in, striking at the scattered raiders. One by one, the enemy ships pulled back, retreating into the dark of space. The battle was over. Inside the Wanderer, silence filled the deck except for the soft hum of the engines. Luma sat frozen, her chest rising and falling fast. Then she turned to Ryan. We won. Ryan nodded. Yes. We won. Her eyes shone with disbelief. She looked at her own small hands. She had helped. Her sight, her strange gift, had saved the station. On Drennerport, the leaders who had mocked her now stared with wide eyes. They whispered among themselves, ashamed of their earlier words. The useless girl had saved them when their own weapons had nearly failed. When Ryan docked the Wanderer at the station, people gathered to meet him. They bowed their heads in respect, not only to him but also to the small girl at his side. Luma hid slightly behind Ryan, overwhelmed by the attention. She had never been looked at with respect before. One of the station leaders stepped forward. Human, we owe you our lives. And to the girl as well. Without her, we would not be standing here. Luma's eyes widened. She had expected more laughter, more scorn. But instead, she was being honored. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and proud. I told you, Luma. You are not useless. You are more than they ever imagined. She felt warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she believed his words. As the station repaired its walls and people returned to safety, a new story began to spread. Not of the raiders, not of the attack, but of the human who stood his ground and the tiny alien girl who turned the tide. The station of Drennerport slowly returned to life after the raid. Broken walls were patched, burned decks were cleaned, and frightened people began to step outside again. Ships that had hidden during the attack now moved through the docks, carrying supplies to repair what was lost. In the center of it all, whispers followed Ryan and Luma wherever they went. The story spread quickly. The human had fought without fear, and the small alien girl had seen what no one else could. To many, it was unbelievable. To those who had laughed at her during the auction, it was a lesson they would not forget. But Luma did not walk proudly through the halls. She stayed close to Ryan, still shy under the weight of so many stares. Each glance made her nervous, each whisper made her wonder if she truly deserved the words of praise. Inside the Wanderer, she sat quietly while Ryan spoke with a station officer. They discussed repairs and the raider threat. Luma listened without speaking until Ryan returned to her side. You are quiet, he said. They all look at me, she whispered. Because they saw what you can do, Ryan answered. Do not be afraid of their eyes. They are not laughing anymore. Luma lowered her gaze. But I did not mean to. I only saw the patterns. Ryan gave a small smile. That is your gift. You see what others cannot. and it is stronger than you realize. Her heart beat faster at his words. Could it be true? Could her strange sight be something more than luck? Later that evening, as the wanderer prepared to leave the station, alarms suddenly rang once more. Ryan rushed to the deck. Luma followed quickly, fear rising again. A message echoed across the comms. Warning. Raiders regrouping. They have returned in greater numbers. Shields damaged. We cannot hold. Through the window, dark shapes filled the sky again. This time, twice as many as before. The leadership had repaired its power and returned with vengeance. The station shook as blasts struck the walls. People screamed, running through the halls. Panic spread faster than fire. Ryan gripped the controls, his face hard. They want revenge. We must fight again. But there are too many, Luma cried. Yes, Ryan said. And that is why I need you. Her hands trembled. Me. You, he said firmly. Last time, you broke their line. You saw what no one else could. Now we must go further. You must use your gift. Luma stared at the screens, her heart racing. The raiders circled like wolves. Weapons glowed bright, ready to tear the station apart. Her breath came fast, but she forced herself to focus. The numbers and signals danced before her eyes. She saw engines, shields, weapons. At first, it was chaos, too fast to follow. But then she let her mind sink deeper. The patterns unfolded like a map, showing lines no one else could see. There, she whispered. If I touch their machines, I can break them. Ryan turned sharply. What do you mean, touch them? I do not know, she admitted. But when I look at them, I feel them. If I reach out, I think I can change them. She closed her eyes. Her hands rose slowly, trembling with fear but steady with purpose. The air around her seemed to hum. On the battlefield, strange things began to happen. One raider ship suddenly lost control of its engines, spinning wildly before crashing into another. A second ship's weapons froze, refusing to fire. A third locked its own doors, trapping its crew inside. The station officers gasped in shock. What is happening to them? Ryan watched Luma with wide eyes. Her small frame shook, but her face was calm, focused. It is her, he whispered. Luma opened her eyes. Her voice was stronger now. I can twist their machines. I can make them stop. Then do it, Ryan said. Hold nothing back. She nodded. Her hands stretched out again, her eyes glowing faintly with the strange patterns inside her. One by one, the raider ships faltered. Engines failed. Weapons turned silent. Doors locked. Panic spread among the raiders as their fleet fell into chaos. The station leaders, who had once called her useless, now stared in awe. The tiny girl they had mocked was breaking an army without lifting a weapon. Ryan guided the wanderer into the fight, striking the weakest ships while Luma disabled the others. Together, they moved like one. He trusted her sight. She trusted his strength. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly the tide turned. The raiders, once fierce and proud, were forced to retreat again. Their leader's ship flickered with failing lights before vanishing into the dark. Silence fell over the battlefield. The station still stood, shaken but alive. The raiders were gone. Inside the Wanderer, Luma collapsed into her seat, her body weak from the effort. Ryan knelt beside her, steadying her shoulders. You did it, he said firmly. Her voice was faint. I only touched their machines. You saved hundreds of lives, he replied. His gaze was full of pride. Never doubt your gift again. Tears filled her eyes, though they did not fall. For the first time, she felt no shame in her smallness. For the first time, she believed she had power. When they returned to the station, crowds gathered once more. This time there was no laughter, no scorn. People bowed their heads, thanking her, praising her, calling her a protector. But Luma only looked at Ryan. "Why do you not laugh like they did? Why do you not fear me now?" Ryan smiled softly. "Because I always knew you had something inside you. I only waited for you to see it yourself." Her chest filled with warmth. She had been bought as nothing, but now she stood as something far greater. The stars outside the Wanderer shone brighter than ever as the ship left Drenner Port behind. The station had been saved twice, but the memory of fear still lingered. Messages of thanks followed Ryan and Luma as they traveled, though both knew it was only the beginning. Luma sat at the viewing window, watching the endless stretch of space. For the first time, she did not feel small in front of its vastness. She touched the glass lightly and whispered, "I changed it. I really changed it." Ryan, busy checking the ship's systems, glanced at her. "You did more than change it. You gave them hope. That is something no weapon can do." Her heart warmed at his words, but she still wondered. "What am I now? A girl with strange sight? Or something else?" Ryan answered with calm certainty. "You are Luma. That is enough. The rest will come in time." They soon arrived at a trade hub known as Vera's Spire. Unlike Drenner, it was larger, brighter, and filled with beings from 100 different worlds. Ships of many shapes drifted in the docks. Markets stretched across the station's rings, shining with light and sound. But the moment Ryan and Luma stepped into the main hall, a wave of whispers rose again. Faces turned toward them. Traders, guards, and even children pointed and spoke in hushed voices. "There, that is the human and the girl. They say she broke a raider fleet. Too small to be true. Yet they survived, and we did not." Luma felt their eyes as before, but this time she did not lower her head. She stood close to Ryan, but her shoulders did not shake. A spark of courage filled her chest. At the council chamber of Vera's Spire, the leaders of the station called for them. The hall was grand, with tall pillars and banners of many colors. Representatives from different species sat around a wide circle, their expressions curious and serious. The eldest among them, a scaled being named Varek, leaned forward. "Human Ryan. Small one Luma. You stand before us because stories of your actions reach far. Tell us, are they true? Did this girl strike down raider ships with nothing but her mind?" Ryan looked at Luma, then back at the council. "They are true. She saw what no one else could. She broke their machines when all others failed." The hall stirred with murmurs. Some voices held doubt, others awe. Varek fixed his gaze on Luma. "Child, is it so?" Luma's hands clenched. The circle of eyes was heavy, but she remembered Ryan's words. She lifted her chin. "Yes. I see the patterns inside machines. I can touch them and change them. I did it to save lives." Silence hung for a moment before a deep voice spoke from the far side of the chamber. "If this is true, then she is a weapon." Another counselor, tall and pale, shook his head. "Not a weapon. A guardian. She saved hundreds." Varek raised his hand, silencing the debate. "Whatever she is, we cannot ignore her gift. But a gift such as this will bring danger. Others will come seeking her. Raiders are only the beginning." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Then let them come. She is not alone." The counselor studied him carefully, then nodded. "Very well. But know this, human. You hold the hand of one who may shape the course of many worlds. Be ready for the weight it brings." After the meeting, crowds gathered again. Some offered gifts of food and cloth. Others asked for blessings, as though Luma were more than a girl. A merchant knelt before her with tears, saying his family lived because of her. Luma felt her chest swell with a strange mix of pride and fear. She never asked for this. She never wanted to be more than herself. But now the galaxy was watching. Later, in the quiet of the Wanderer, she spoke to Ryan. They call me names. Guardian, Savior, Weapon. I do not know which one is true. Ryan sat across from her. His voice was steady. None of those matter. You are Luma. You chose to save, not to destroy. That is the truth. Her small hand tightened on his sleeve. What if I fail next time? He placed his hand over hers. Then you stand up again. That is what humans do. And now, it is what you can do too. Days passed, and word of Luma spread farther. Messages came from other stations, begging for help. Raiders feared her name, retreating when rumors claimed she was near. Traders sought her protection, offering wealth. But with every new message, Luma felt the weight grow heavier. One night, as the Wanderer drifted in quiet space, Luma dreamed. She saw stars falling, machines breaking, ships burning. At the center stood herself, glowing with strange light. But around her were faces twisted in fear, not respect. She woke with a cry. Ryan rushed to her side. What is it? Her voice shook. What if they stop thanking me? What if they begin to fear me, like the council said? Ryan looked at her, his expression calm yet firm. Then we show them the truth again and again. We fight not for power, but for those who cannot fight. That is what keeps fear away. His words steadied her heart. She breathed slowly and nodded. The next day, a new message arrived. A nearby colony was under siege. Raiders had grown desperate, and this time, they had allies. The council asked for help, but many ships were too far. Ryan turned to Luma. This is the test. Are you ready? Her eyes held both fear and fire. Yes. I will not hide anymore. Together, they set course for the colony. As the stars rushed past, Luma sat at the window once more. She remembered the auction, the laughter, the chains. She remembered the fear of being small and weak. And now, she remembered the strength of reaching out, of breaking what was meant to destroy. Her voice was quiet, but filled with resolve. They laughed once. They will not laugh again. Ryan nodded with pride. No. Now, they will know your name. The Wanderer sped into the dark, carrying the girl who was no longer just a fragile soul. She was Luma, the one who turned laughter into silence, the one who gave light to the stars. The stars outside the Wanderer shone cold and bright as the ship raced toward the besieged colony. Luma stood at the viewing window, her small frame tense, her fingers pressed lightly against the glass. The colony was far away, and the reports were urgent. Raiders had attacked, capturing supplies and threatening the lives of those who could not defend themselves. Ryan entered the room quietly, his gaze calm but sharp. Luma, are you ready? She turned to him, her eyes holding both fear and determination. I have to be. Too many lives depend on it. He nodded, understanding the weight she carried. Then we do not wait. The faster we reach them, the sooner we can save them. As the Wanderer dropped from hyperspace near the colony, chaos was visible even from space. Smoke rose from damaged buildings, small fires flickered across the settlement, and raider ships circled above like predators. The colony's defenders tried to fight back, but their numbers were too few, their weapons too weak. Ryan adjusted the ship's course. We will get them out safely, one step at a time. Luma stood beside him, watching the enemy ships closely. She closed her eyes, letting the strange patterns she sensed fill her mind. The raiders' engines, their weapons, their shields all pulsed like threads in a web. She reached out with her gift, willing her energy to touch the machines. A pulse of light spread from her fingertips. One raider ship froze, its weapons locking in place. Another shuddered as engines faltered. Luma's small hands moved faster, almost dancing in the air. Each movement disrupted the raiders' fleet, giving the colony defenders a chance to regroup. Ryan guided the Wanderer with precision, dodging fire while Luma focused on weakening the enemy. "Good," he said quietly. "Keep going. You are stronger than you know." Her lips pressed together, she did not answer. The ships faltered under her touch. The largest raider vessel, the one leading the attack, emitted sparks and smoke as her gift reached deep into its systems. "Now, Ryan," she said, pointing toward the leadership. He understood. The Wanderer moved with skill, targeting the weak points Luma identified. A shot struck the leader's engine core, sending the massive ship spiraling out of control. Smaller raider ships, confused without direction, tried to flee but faltered under her touch. The colony defenders, seeing the tide turn, pressed forward. They fired on the remaining raiders, reclaiming control. One by one, the attackers retreated, leaving their burned-out ships behind. The colony was saved. On the surface, people rushed out from hiding, cheering, and offering thanks to the small ship in the sky. They saw a human and a tiny alien girl standing at the helm of the Wanderer, the unlikely heroes who had turned the battle. Ryan guided the ship down, landing gently near the colony's main square. Luma stepped forward, her hands trembling slightly. People stared at her, but instead of fear or laughter, they looked with awe. Children ran to her, adults bowed, and leaders approached with respect. A woman with gray hair, the colony's elder, stepped forward. "Little one, you have saved us all. How can we ever repay you?" Luma lowered her gaze, unsure how to answer. She had never wanted praise. She had only wanted to survive. But Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and reassuring. "You do not need reward," he said. "You only need to know your worth." Her chest swelled with emotion. For the first time, she felt strong, not because she had power, but because she had saved lives and changed the outcome. As the crowd celebrated, Luma looked at Ryan. "Why did you believe in me from the beginning?" Ryan smiled. "Because I saw what others could not. You are more than they ever imagined. You just needed a chance to see it yourself." Her eyes glimmered. Then, "I am not useless." "Never," he said firmly. The colony spent the night in joy and relief, repairing what had been broken, sharing food, and celebrating the heroes who had come to save them. Luma stood with Ryan, watching the people she had protected. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known. By morning, news of her deeds had already reached nearby stations. Traders whispered her name in awe. Raiders feared even approaching sectors where she was rumored to be. She had gone from a small, fragile girl mocked at an auction to a figure whose power and courage could change the galaxy. Ryan and Luma returned to the Wanderer, preparing to continue their journey. Luma's hands rested lightly on the controls as she helped Ryan chart a course through safer paths. She no longer doubted herself. She had a gift, and she would use it to protect those in need. As the ship sailed through the stars, Luma spoke softly. "Do you think I can really help everyone?" Ryan glanced at her with a calm smile. "You do not need to help everyone at once. You only need to help those you can. And each life you touch will make the galaxy stronger." Her gaze fell on the endless black dotted with light. The stars seemed to shine brighter, reflecting her newfound confidence. She lifted her chin, her small figure steady beside the human who had once raised his hand when no one else would. "They laughed at me once," she said quietly. Ryan's eyes followed hers. "And now, they will never forget you." For Luma, the journey was no longer about fear or weakness. It was about courage, trust, and the power of one small being to make a difference. The galaxy was wide, full of danger and hope, and she had found her place in it. and as the wanderer flew through the dark, carrying its tiny passenger with great power, the stars seemed to bend around them. Luma had a name now, a purpose, and a destiny. She would never be overlooked again. Together, she and Ryan sailed into the unknown, ready to face whatever came next. The laughter of the auction hall was far behind them. Ahead was a galaxy that would remember the little alien girl who had refused to be ignored, the human who believed in her, and the light they created together.